Hello, hello, is this mic working? Alright, can you guys hear me over the music okay? Before we get started? Alright, perfect. I'm still trying to figure out the open broadcast system I'm using, but I think I got everything set up so I can at least do some coding. Let's hope that the doesn't eat up too much of my computer's power for running the .NET Core build. We'll get started in just a few minutes. Alright, it is 2:30 my time, and let's get started on my first ever live Twitch streaming code stream. I'm really excited to start doing this, and this is kind of my dry run to see if I can actually do this and keep up with whatever people start saying in the chat to me while I'm coding. So thanks for coming. And today I want to finish up a pull request I'm doing for .NET Core and maybe get to doing David Ortano's Xamarin challenge for the the visual stuff that he's been posting about on Twitter and was talked about at the .NET Community Stand-Up. So before I get started with code, I wanted to talk about what I have been working on with .NET Core. And I'm a big Xamarin developer and love doing MVVM work. And we have this new API that got approved for collection of T and observable collection of T. And basically what we're doing is we're going to be adding range manipulation APIs to .NET Core and hopefully .NET Standard. It was just marked the other day for a candidate for .NET Standard if we get the pull request done. So I want to finish up this pull request and hopefully we'll get it into the next release. So when I started working on this, it was kind of complicated and I wanted to catch people up to what I've been doing. So I got this pull request out there where I went ahead and already made modifications to the observable collection and collection. But one of the problems I ran into with this was there's two projects that you have to update. There's the .NET Core FX project, and there's also the .NET Core CLR project. Because it's kind of interesting what they're doing with these projects. If I go to the Core CLR project here, basically all of the shared code that that's being used in the Core FX project. So collection of T is in shared code, and the changes need to be made in the Core CLR project, and then they get mirrored over to the Core FX project. And so when you're actually working on this implementation, you're building between the two projects. So I actually have a instance of Core CLR downloaded locally to my machine, and I have to run a build on that whenever I make changes. And then when I build a Core FX, I have to pass in a certain parameter to get my custom build of the Core CLR to build the Core FX, because observable collection is in Core FX. The collection is in the Core CLR. So it kind of made putting all this work together a little complicated. But once I figured it out, it wasn't too bad. And right now I am actually just waiting for my build to finish running. That is taking quite a bit of time. And let me open up Visual Studio and we could start getting to some of the code that I've been doing. Alright. Oh no, I forgot to switch to light theme. We're going to do that while I wait for that build. Let's update that. And I'm going to go over to the light theme because it looks better on screen shares and such. Alright. Give that a second. And our computer, of course, is still going very slow while that build is running. There we go. No, I picked the wrong one. I wanted blue, not light. My mistake. So this is just going to be me messing around with Visual Studio, not actually coding today. But it's okay, I'm still waiting for my build to finish running so we can run the unit test. Because when I was doing all this work with Core FX, I noticed that Visual Studio wasn't really working the way I wanted it to work. So I actually end up doing everything through PowerShell. And right now, I'm just waiting for my Core FX project to finish building, which ends up being about 5 to 10 minutes, depending on a couple different things with the build. And the part that I want to start taking a look at today is during the pull request. Let me go back to the pull request. Scroll down here. Here it is. Justin had some really good feedback from me that basically sums up to the way that we're doing the replace items range, we're ending up firing a lot of different messages than we should be. So he summarized right here all the different messages that are getting sent, and down here he summarized what should be sent. So right now, this is the last thing I want to do for the pull request. So right now, I'm hoping that I can update the remove items range and insert items range to prevent the messages from being sent when we're doing the replace, and then add some unit tests for it and finish up this pull request. Alright, and we're still waiting for the build to finish here. James is asking how much code from observable range collection moved over. I don't think any of it moved over. I've actually never used that before. When I started this, I kind of just wanted to see how far I could get with it, and then I ended up getting pretty far with it and then decided to submit the pull request. It was kind of just, I wanted to learn how to build the mono project, which then transitioned into me copying my code over to the Core FX project and then going from there. And if you got any recommendations that you want to see put into it, we can certainly give it a shot. Yeah. Still waiting for the build. While I'm waiting for the build, I guess I'll take a look at the stuff that I want to add in a minute. Place items range. So I believe I started adding the code last night, and right now I added this skip raising event boolean that we're just going to flip when we call the replace, and then afterwards we're going to call our onCollection changed. So if I go to our remove, scroll down a little bit here. That makes sense. We go to insert items range. The only part that's not going to be right, I need to make sure about this ignore. So if that's true, we don't want to set that, and we don't want to do that. So that makes sense. Go to move. That all makes sense. Alright. Oh good, this is almost done. The most annoying part about doing this is how long this build process takes for my machine. And while we wait for that, I want to take a look at the code that James posted. Let's go take a look at James's observable range collection. Where is it? It's in MVVM helpers. All right. Well, looks pretty similar to stuff that we're doing. The thing that it doesn't look like this does is handle what the code review was stating about the different events, all the different events being fired when you do the replace range. Gotcha. Alright. I promise the build is almost done. When I see MS Core Lib and these Microsoft .NET Core, that means it's almost done. And hopefully we don't need to make too many more changes because that's a long build process. Yeah, so let's go and try running our test now. So we are in the system object model. And from there, I run .NET MS build /t rebuild and test. This is only going to rebuild the test project. And as I was mentioning earlier, for those who joined late, I really can't use the IDE to run the test, which is kind of annoying. So I end up running it all through the command line here. And we have a couple test failures. A little bigger. So I was changing some code here, so I want to get those tests working correctly. So the skip one, so line 86. Alright, so it's doing the skipped collection change to replace, and just make sure I'm on the right test. And it's saying the expected is 1, the actual is 0. This is going to be on replace items range, so I'm just going to pull this side by side. Alright, what is it doing? So our test here, we create the counter, we add, wire that up, and then we're expecting that to have a null reference exception here, which it does throw because it gets to line 86. And the null reference is getting thrown on the insert. So this test is now wrong because it doesn't ever get down to here. So let's update that. So this should always be 0. And I'm going to update my little note here because this test is a little complicated. So this is 0 because let's make sure I get that right. This is 0 because actually, no, we don't need that comment there anymore, I don't think. I'll just remove that. Because it doesn't even get that far anymore. Because we're passing in null and we have this is for a non-nullable collection, so that's fine. Alright, so if I rerun this now, that's going to pass. I'll let that run. Alright, so replace range, notify collection change. It's yelling at us a different test now. Let's go take a look at this one at line 621. I'm on file, aren't I? That's observable collection, skip, that's for the events. This is for the method test, so let's open up that one. Uh, 621. Alright, so this test is focusing just on the method, and we're doing a replace range. It's saying that the event counter is wrong here. So when we do the replace range, we're doing data to replace. We're trying to add 3 and 8 in. And so it should remove those two and replace it with 3 and 8. So we'll do our replace range. And down here, it's going to say the counter should be 2, and that should be 1 now because of the change that we made over there. So that makes sense for this one to be failing. So if we update that, and that's what and that's what is that was actually coming in. So just confirming that. So we got that saved. Let's rerun our test here. And I think we'll have one more test to fix before I want to start adding some more tests. Okay, so this one is the skipped collection change, replace. So I think this is another exception one. So this is back over in the other test file we have. And it's at line 89. So it is saying that the actual count is 0. Oh, I know what's going on here. We're gonna have to do another fun long build. So what looks like is happening is we got an exception that's bubbling up from replace items range, but it's not resetting this back to false. So when we go and add an additional item, this skip raising event is still marked as true, which means we're not going to raise the event there. So what we did in other ones is we had this try finally block to make sure that if there was an exception, we reset our value. So we need to make sure we do that here as well. So I'm just going to add in a little bit of white space. Nope, let's try in the wrong spot there. So we'll say try. And finally, that way if the exception does happen, we'll just reset it. Alright, before I start that 10-minute build process, I wanted to see if there was any other tests that I wanted to add to verify this. So let's take a look at what I got for this. Replace range. So this looks right. Alright. I'm going to make this a little bit bigger because there is another problem that we have. If I'm going to run a 10-minute build, I want to fix that. So the on collection change doesn't really handle passing in the old collection and the new collection very gracefully. I'm going to go back to the code review notes because there were some comments that they made. I just wanted to review. So, right. So the collection change requires an I list for new items and old items. So, and our collection here might not always be an I list, so we need to convert it over to that. But that's just saying object. Oops. Let's go take a closer look at this. On collection change calls this. Right, so we got the I list, new items, old items. This is just a wrapper that takes object. I wonder if we have any other things in here. Let's see. That's better. So we got the I list. Alright, I think we're just going to need to cast that to an I list. Or not cast, but update it so we can call this method here. So let's just go back to where we were. Alright, so before we make any changes, I need to store the old array here. And I'm just going to say, call it iList. List of T, let's say old collection equals. They had certain syntax they wanted me to use. Let's just double check that. That's right. I want to say if collection, we'll do a ternary, is an I list. Right, that's what it said? Yeah. We can just return that. We'll say collection else. Oh, they're using pattern matching there. That's kind of nifty. I haven't played too much with pattern matching. So we can say list, and then we'll say new list T collection. Alright? What's it yelling at me for? Can I implicitly convert? Collection, we'll just make that. Yeah, we'll do that. Alright, so now I can come down here and we'll say old collection. And then for the new collection, that might not be a list, so when we get down here, I'll just do another list T, say new collection. Because it could be an array underneath the actual collection object. So let's make that, we'll do just the exact same thing that we did up there. So list, so new list of T, and we'll pass in collection. Well, let me do that. No, it won't. We're not going to use pattern matching. We'll just say list T. Just keep it simple. We'll say list T here as well. Alright. And we'll pass in our new collection. And index, so then if we look, we dive into that, it's going to pass in, doesn't know to go to the right one though, is my question here. Because wouldn't it just go to this one here, not the list one? And what we could do is we'll say if old item is iList and new item is iList. We'll do one thing, otherwise we'll do the old one. And that should solve that problem. Say on collection changed here, we'll say new notify collection change event args. We got the action, and we'll say iList old item, we'll say iList new item index. Perfect. Add my last paren there. Perfect. So now when we come in here, we capture our old collection. If there's an exception, it still runs that finally, and then I don't want to do any of that stuff, so we'll need to add a return there. Nope, that's not going to work. We want to make sure that we don't run any of this code when there's an exception, because nothing really happened to our collection. I don't want to do that. I could just create another variable up here. Let's say, I'll say it has exception occurred. So if that's false, we'll just say fetch exception, and we'll say that's true. And set that to just prevent the bottom stuff happening if there's an exception. Let's add some white space down there. Yeah, that should take care of that. And then we could add some tests for that. That'll be good. Alright, so let me run my build now. So I'm going to go back to the root directory here. And every time I've had to build a Core FX project, I've had to run this clean command first. And then once that's done, I could run the super long build. I could try talking for 10 minutes while that next build's running and see how long I can talk till my face turns blue. So I can never remember the exact command, but I run the standard build command, but I'm overriding the core CLR with my own implementation that I've already wrote. There's no changes happening there anymore, but I need to run that. And all right. Now we play the waiting game, and while we're waiting, take a quick look at the chat. No one's making fun of me, so I guess I'm doing something right. And let me go back over here and just take a look at a couple of the comments and make sure that we're addressing them here. So Justin was saying that all these events, so that's what we just fixed. We updated the replace. We made a small change to how we handle that notify collection change to make sure that it goes to the iList implementation. Follow that. We had some other things that I haven't looked at yet. So he's saying you don't think this call is correct. Alright, so let's see. In this case, for multiple items of change, remove items is incorrectly being passed as single instead, I believe, using the following constructor. Changed items. I think the one that we ended up using is okay, because it shows when the event gets passed, it's going to have the old items and the new items, which is pretty standard. Alright, let's see. This one was same comments. This call doesn't care. Oh, is this one for the remove? Oh, this is for remove. Okay, so he's saying that we need to just have the new collection. Same comments. This call doesn't appear to be correct. It's passing collection incorrectly as a single line. Item, it's changed. Instead, it should be using the constructor. Alright, let's take a look at that. We'll go to remove items range. And down here at the bottom. So that's just doing the removed items. And saying that only accepts iList, so if collection doesn't implement iList, it will need to be kept. Oh, okay, so if we head over here, this code needs to be updated to take in an iList, because it's not going to pass the right thing along, is what he's saying. Let's take a closer look here. And when the build's running, everything is gonna be red squiggly. So while this runs, Visual Studio gets very mad at me. We'll ignore that while I look at this. So we have the changed item, which comes in as an object. Grabs a one item change. Okay, so there should be assume there's one for iList. No, I don't want parameters. I want to look through the docs here. Do it this way. All right. So we have the changed items and starting index. I think that's what he was talking about. So what I could do is I could just do that same thing that I did earlier and check if it's iList and call that one explicitly. So I'm going to stop that build that we started. And there we go. I'll just run that clean command again. And I want to make a couple updates to this one here to check if item is iList. And if it is, we'll call this, just copy that over, and we'll cast that as an iList. Else, we will just run the default implementation there. It's gonna yell at me. Oh, of course it's gonna yell at me because I stopped the build mid-run. Alright, so let's just take a look, double check. So he's complaining about the, not complaining, but recommending. That's a better word. No one's ever complaining in a pull request. They're always just making recommendations. I always try to assume everyone's got amazing intent when they're reviewing your code. Alright, so same comments there. So removed items, add items. So let's just check those APIs. So we'll go to insert items range. So that might not be an iList. Because if it's an array, it's not an iList. We should probably convert that before we get there. So what I'm going to do is we're going to have this be call it list t. Call this list of t. And what is it looking for? We'll just call it list. That'll be fine. And we'll say if the collection is an iList, we'll do list of t. It should cast correctly, like we did earlier. So list of t, and we'll say collection else new list of t collection, and then we'll just pass in the list here, and that'll make sense. So we'll do the same thing for the remove items range. And I'll just say list, not read only list. T, we'll say list if the we want removed items. Alright, let me double check that. I think this is calling array overload. Calls change items. In this case, multiple items have changed. Removed items incorrectly being passed as a single item. Instead, I believe we should be using arguments with changed items. Okay. Okay, I think that's fine there. We will do list t there, and if that's true, we'll cast it. I'm just going to copy that since IntelliSense is gone at this moment. That should be a question mark, not a colon. So we have a question mark, removed items, We'll say new list T moved items. That's that. Alright, so that's going to cover that. So we're going to pass in that. From there, it's going to come in here. On collection changed. This one. So I'll come in here and we'll say if the item is an iList, list of T implements iList, so that should be fine. We'll come in here, we'll cast it as an iList and go down that path, else we'll do that. So this one will handle the collections in the array. So that should do the trick. So I'm going to run the build and pray that I didn't make any syntax errors, because this thing takes about 10 minutes to run. And alright. How am I doing so far? Is everyone following along? Having fun watching me fumble through some .NET Core code? Alright. And I'm going to go take a look at the notes again while that builds, see if I'm missing anything else. So this is going to cover that stuff there. We just added in event handling here. And we'll try and add some tests for this. If we can't, we can't, but we'll see what we can do for adding tests for this. Alright. Alright. So now that you've watched me try and take care of some of the event handling stuff, maybe while we wait for the build to actually work, I can explain a little bit of how I got these pieces to play together nicely. So I'm actually going to close my solution here. So what we ended up doing originally was, I originally wrote this code in the Mono project, and let me head over there. So under the Mono project, there is a section for the private assemblies and for the Core FX, and that lives under this MCS folder here. I believe it's under class, if I remember correctly. Pretty sure it was here. Let me go find it. Anyways, I don't remember exactly where it is, but the reason why I wanted to come over here and explain this is I didn't realize this before I started the work, and so I didn't realize this before I started the work, but the Mono library has a fork of the Core FX code. So if I actually did like a search for, let's say we look for collection in this repository, and this is not going to work the same way I wanted it to, but where is it? So I'll have to find it when I'm done explaining this instead of me stumbling around and stuff. But so the Mono project has its own fork of Core FX, and so all of your private assemblies that are built into .NET Core get brought over to the Mono project. And the reason why this is so important is I do a lot of Xamarin development, and with Xamarin it's using Mono. So it's really cool that now that I know when I make a change to the .NET Core, it gets brought over to Mono. The next step to the puzzle will be getting into the .NET Standard. But so a little bit of the history on this task is, if I go back to the initial issue that was created and discussed with everyone, when we scroll down to the bottom of it, Once it loads, there we go. So the other week, my good friend Chase asked here about getting this into the .NET standard. So he created that, and that kind of inspired me to get my hands dirty a little bit with this. So I immediately created, was this one in the Mono project? Yeah. So I created this one in the Mono project to just have visibility of what we were doing and just kind of reference everything back to the main .NET Core one. So that's kind of where I started with this. And when I started with it, it was, okay, let me get Mono project running. Let me make the changes in the Mono project and submit it there, because I had no idea how any of this stuff actually worked. And then after I got a little bit closer, they told me that it actually needs to be implemented in Core FX first, and then it gets brought over here automatically, which was really cool to see how some of that stuff works. So then I took my changes and spent a day trying to figure out how to port them over to Core FX. And inside the Core FX project, we'll go back there. This one I can actually show you where the code is on GitHub. I know where it is. And if we go to source, common, go to source again, core lib, now we go to system, collections, object model. So here's our collection code, but there's a problem with just writing the changes here in Core FX. All of the code that are under the, I'm not sure if it's common or core lib, it's one of those, but pretty much all the code in this section of the Core FX project, you should never be making changes to in your pull request. My initial pull request had changes here, and they told me this is not the appropriate spot to make those changes. They actually get made in the Core CLR project, and then they have this mirroring bot that takes those changes and creates pull requests to the different .NET projects so they can be committed. And they actually, one of the reasons why I wanted to do this stream today was my changes actually just got merged or mirrored over here last night. So they're actually here now, which is cool. It took a couple days for it to actually get mirrored over. The initial pull request, if we go back, I can show you that. I think the build's still running. Yep, the build is still running. It's a beast. It takes a long time. And we'll head over to my pull request here. Here it is. And once that loads, we had the initial pull request that's already been merged here into the Core CLR project. So we've kind of been dealing with like a little chicken and the egg problem. Well, we need it in the Core CLR before we can actually make these changes, and it's been really fascinating understanding how all these pieces work together. But if we just looked at the file changes here, we didn't even write any test code in this, because it's all the test code that tests this is actually in the Core FX project. It's just the dependencies are kind of interesting. So these are all the changes that we got implemented for the base collection of T, and it's really not a terrible amount of code when we look at it. And I'm gonna butcher that username, but Gesso Pass, I think is how you pronounce it. So I'm not doing streaming officially on any other days, to answer your question. I'm hoping to start doing them sometime next week. I'm still trying to figure out the best day and time. Right now, I'm thinking of doing open source coding on sometime Monday afternoons. I'm not 100% sure what time it is. I'll be sure to announce it on Twitter once I figure it out. I gotta take a look at my schedule and when I can actually dedicate an hour or two to do stuff like this. And build is still running. we'll head back over here. So, what was the next thing I wanted to show you? Right. So right now we've been focusing on this system.object model project, and the other part about navigating this code base is they have for certain namespace groupings, they have different solutions that you could work out of. So if I open up our Core FX folder and go to source, so we've been working in system object model, all of the collection of T tests, for example. If I scroll down here to system.runtime and open this solution, this is going to have all of our collection of T tests. So when I was making changes to the Core CLR project and running this build, before I can even really start the observable collection tests, I just ran we'd run the collection of T tests here. There's just a lot of different moving parts to keep track of. And oh no, it's yelling at us for something. Can I convert type T to list of T? Well, that sucks. Let's get that fixed. I was counting on you guys in the chat to tell me I was doing something wrong. Let's open up our object model, because that's where those changes are. Alright. So it said observable collection line 175. And the error message says, can I convert type T array to collection? So removed items is, oh, well that's always an array, so that's not very helpful. Maybe instead of creating the array up here, since we need to store that information, what we're removing, we can just update this to be a list of T. Say removed items. And we'll just say removed items dot add. I'll say this index. Perfect. Yeah, originally I wrote that out as an array because I was trying to be really conscious of memory allocation. When writing this code, I have to be. You got to be careful because there's going to be cases where people have very large collections, and I wanted to try and limit stuff as much as possible. But it turned out that code really didn't bias a whole lot because our events weren't passing in the right data anyways. So it's kind of interesting seeing how this is coming together, and gives me a much better understanding of the observable collection and why it can be expensive when you're using it. And hopefully in a Xamarin project, you're not going to be trying to render a list view that has let's say int.max value on it. That'd be a lot of items to put on a mobile device. All right, so that hopefully will build. So it looks like that was our only error. So I'm going to rerun the build. Actually, no, I want to clean first. And the reason why I keep doing these cleans first is I found if I didn't clean, stuff got cached, and after waiting those 5-10 minutes, well, stuff wouldn't work, and it was frustrating. We can ignore those errors. It's just getting some locks on files that don't matter a whole lot. So now I'm going to run the build. Alright. And we get to wait another 10 minutes or so for maybe another error will pop up, or maybe it'll be good. All right, so while that's running, I had a couple things, a couple test cases I wanted to start figuring out what we wanted to do. So maybe we can start stubbing those out while it runs. Make good use of our time here. And so we made some big changes here. So we have this on collection changed that now is passing in a list of T, and we said if we go to the definition of it, not that one, go to this one, we're going to check if it's an I list, and if it's an I list, fire that. So maybe what we want to start doing over here, we'll make our test code bigger. So this is skip collection change. I don't want to do that. Let's go back to our method tests. So we'll say over here for removed, create a new fact. And we'll say on remove range, say when we do the notify collection changed, I'll say event args test. So let's create our observable collection. I'm just going to copy the syntax over from here. And let's create an array that we're going to add to our collection. So let's say, call it data to add. I'm going to say equals a new integer array, and we're going to say 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. And I'm going to create another one, which is going to be actual data added. And we're just going to set that to null to begin with. I'll just do like new int 0. I know that'll work. So, and then we're going to have wire up our actual event. So there is the collection changed event, and of course it only tells us since right now, so we'll say collection changed, say plus equals, and we have our sender object and our event arguments. And I'll open up my curly braces for this one. We might be able to simplify that in a minute, but we are saying over here that we're passing in the I list. Let's make that slightly bigger. And so check the status right there, it's still running. So I want to take a look at the changed items. So that should be coming back as, I'm just trying to see how that gets added into the actual event arguments. So we got new items. There should be a property in here that gets added to. There we go. So there's a new items. Perfect. So I should be able to say, so e dot new items, which is going to be our I list. And what we'll do is we'll say actual data added equals this. And we'll add that. That should be correct. We should be able to no. I'm just gonna use link syntax. So I should I'm gonna wait until we get this. I think we've gone far enough. So another weird thing that I found doing this is when I run that build, sometimes I get my IntelliSense back. I just gotta close and reopen the solution. It looks like the build's gone far enough where I should have all my IntelliSense back, so let's give that a shot. This I and E dot new items don't be uppercase. Let me go back to the test we were at. Say yes, it should be. There it is. It is a capital I. So this is why I like IntelliSense. It just saves us so much time. But I should be able to do this with link. No. There we go. That should work. And this is test code, so I don't care that we brought in system.link. Perfect. Thanks for the assist there for making sure that I got my casing correct because the IntelliSense was not working. So I'm just actually going to simplify this to be on one line. Do that. There we go. Perfect. All right. So now I can actually run our collection. We're messing with what, remove range. We're gonna change this to add range because that's what we wrote. We wrote the add range test, so we'll say collection dot. Should have an add range. Oh, it's probably still building. That's why it's yelling at me. So we'll say, we'll double check once that's done building. We'll say add range, and what is my API for add range? Now we'll just do insert items range. We'll do add range later. They end up being the same thing. Insert items range. There we go. Alright. It's got me so confused with the lack of IntelliSense. So we'll say 0. And our collection that we want to add, it would be data to add. Is there any other parameters I need to add? Nope. So we'll do that, and then what I'm gonna check is we'll say I like to do check the collection to make sure it's not null. And if we get there and it is null, we have bigger problems. And then what I'm gonna say is Visual Studio. All right, then we'll say our expected is going to be data to add. Data to add, and our actual Visual Studio is acting up on me right now. It is going to be actual data added. That should cover that one. And the build is still running. We'll give that a minute. Alright, so let's just talk through this, make sure I got it right. We have add range. So we want to add this array. This is just a placeholder. We create our collection. We wire up our collection changed. And if we scroll down here, it is going to pass in that. We also should probably check No, because if it was remove, it wouldn't be setting new items. Okay, perfect. So that makes sense. So then we call the insert items. That is the right API. Let's see if IntelliSense came back. Insert range. That's what I wanted. There we go. Baby steps while the build is running. So then we'll just make sure our collection's not null. And then data to add is our expected, our actual data added. Yeah, that test should be good. Alright. And we're going to create another fact here. Say public static for, I'm going to do the remove range this time. We'll say notify collection changed event args test. Just delete that line there. So what I've been doing for the ones where I need to remove, I'd like to start with like an initial data set. So we'll say initial data. And we'll just create an array. I'll say 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. And I'll create my observable collection of int. Perfect. I'll call that collection equals new observable collection. And the reason why I'm not passing in the array is, is it? For collection, it's slightly different than observable collection. Let me double check. So, well, if you pass in an array to collection of t, it's going to create a read-only collection. But in our case with the observable collection, I'm pretty sure it actually creates a copy of whatever data structure you pass in. Yeah, so it calls it a create copy. If collections null, yeah, so it ends up creating a list for your underlying data structure. And that just gave me an idea of something I might want to change. Alright, I'm gonna just open up a notepad here. Just take a note. Should we be type checking the underlying collection for list T? It should already be on list T. So earlier we wrote all those checks for, so we go to like insert, I want to say it's insert items range. Yeah, we wrote these checks as saying if it is of list T, just cast it, but the collection should already be of list T based on those constructors. So I might want to go back and change this. I'm just putting a note for myself to go back to that later because we're working on unit tests right now. For a collection of T, it is different. If you do pass in an array to a collection of T, it will create a read-only array. Okay, so what we'll do is we'll just say for each item in the initial data, and we'll say that's an int, and we'll say collection dot add. Visual Studio is yelling at me because we got that build running in the background. It's getting closer. It's a long build we gotta wait for. And we'll just add in item. That takes care of that. Okay. So now I also want to wire up our collection changed. And we're gonna have another array that we're gonna say actual data removed. And I'm just gonna set that to an empty array. And we're gonna do the exact same thing we did earlier. There at line 614 here. Well, it's taking a minute. Of course, Visual Studio is busy. It does happen to all of us. Okay, yeah, so what we did here at line 614, we're just going to do the same thing down here. So I'm just going to say, but we're going to do it for moving. So collection changed. Say, I promise I have plus equal. It is really not happy with me coding. Well, we might need to open up code, Visual Studio Code instead. Alright, so we'll say O and E. Alright, we made it through that. So we'll say actual data removed is equal to E dot old items dot cast, and let's say that to array. It must be getting close to the end of the build there. I really wish I figured out a way to just build the stuff that I'm concerned about, but I haven't figured out a way to do that, and it pretty much just needs to run through and build all of .NET Core for me to make one little change. It's slightly frustrating when you have to make changes to this project. I'm sure there's a better way, I just couldn't figure it out. Okay, so then the next thing we do, we're going to add our collection. That's our initial data. Let's add a count. So we're going to say number of items to remove. We'll make that 4. So we're going to remove the first 4 items. This is going to be the plan here. So if I do collection dot remove range, we'll start at 0, and we'll say number of items to remove. All right, perfect. So now I could say assert not null. Let's make sure our collection's not null, which it shouldn't be. We'll see that. Let's check the length of our collection. So we'll say this length, or actually the count, minus the number of items to remove. That should equal. That's not going to be right. I want to do the initial. So we'll say it's actually initial data.length minus the number of items to remove should equal our collection.count. So we're just making sure that I actually remove the correct number of items. I'm going to say assert equal, we're going to say actual data removed should be equal to our initial data. And I'm going to use span, is it as span? Yes, as span. And I'm going to look at one of my other examples for how I did that. So as span. And I could just specify the range that I want. So our range is 0 and number of items to remove. And then I could just cast that to an array. Perfect. Yeah, for when I've been working on this, I got to play with AsSpan quite a bit, which I haven't really looked at before. It's one of the recommendations from the code reviewers, and I really like it because now I can easily say we have our actual data removed, which we're expecting to be values 1, 2, 3, and 4 here. And then I could take our initial data block and just say, okay, give me items starting at 0, give me the first 4 items, which should be the exact same array. So it just simplifies this a little bit. Oh good, we're at the MS Core Lib section, so that means we're almost at the end of this. Alright, now we can run these tests and see if they work. Which, they probably won't, and we'll have to fix them, but that's okay. And let's take... I'm just going to look at some of this list casting that I'm doing. Because we say if it is a list T, I mean, this code technically doesn't hurt anything. And if for whatever reason the stuff ever changes, because I was just kind of going back while we're waiting for that build to finish, going back up here to the top where we pass in these collections, it creates a copy, and that create copy, as we saw earlier, just creates a new list. So it's always going to be of list T when it's inside of an observable collection. But I'm thinking that it's okay to leave in there. I might bring it up. See what other people think. I'll review my own code in the pull request. We'll do that after we submit the code up. Alright, let's see. Oh, perfect. It's done building. So, like I was mentioning earlier, I'm just going to close the solution and reopen it because I want my IntelliSense. As you guys have seen, I fumble over code without it. Remember when I was in college, one of my professors told me before I started using IntelliSense, it kind of codes for you. So they wanted me to learn programming without it first. Anyways, let's navigate. Sorry about that, phone was going off. So let's navigate over to our system.object model. Go to tests. I'm going to put my phone on do not disturb so it doesn't do that again. Alright, so I said earlier we say .NET msbuild /t rebuild and test. And that's going to build our test project and run all of our tests. And let's see what fails and what we need to update. Oh boy. We have 2 failed tests. Okay. So in the skip collection change, looks like there's no exception was thrown on that one. So let's go to line 85 on our skipped collections. We're gonna go away from these tests. These tests look like they actually passed, which is good. That's awesome. They never work on the first try. Oh, 629. That's gonna be this one here. Oh, this one failed. Let's put a little note. We'll come back to this. This one failed. We'll come back to it. I like to work at the top of my list first. Alright. So we'll do skip collection change test. So it's going to bring us over here. And line 85. So the replace range in the case, so this test right here, we are doing a non-nullable observable collection, and we're passing in a string, and this string array has null in it, and this should be throwing an argument null exception, right? Argument null exceptions are expected, but nothing was thrown. So let's take a look at our replace range here. What I did for this is this was actually one of the code review items, is out in the wild they're saying that people create these non-nullable observable collections and will throw exceptions and bubble up and not be handled appropriately. So in the replace range we have this exception, and oh, I know what's going on here. So what's going on here is we gobbled up the exception but didn't do anything. I think we should just be able to remove that, and I don't think we're going to need this anymore. This is something I'm not going to be able to finish testing right now because that's a very long build process, and I think we're going to be stopping at the top of the hour. Alright. We'll see. Alright, so let's go and focus on the other test. But that should fix that problem there. I'm going to get rid of this bool. Alright, so the other test that was failing. If we scroll down. Alright, because we had 2 failed tests. Next one is method test of line 2 at 629, which is right here. That can't be right. Alright, am I looking at that right? So this test failed. I think this is a new one here. So 629 says, why can't we create a collection? Why? That doesn't make any sense. Right, this is line 629 right there. This is line 629. Did I change something in the couple seconds we were messing around with that? Let's rebuild this. And let's... Alright. So 630 is the error. So it's saying that we cannot cast bold items. Alright, so we're doing remove range, right? Let's go and see what's actually happening here. So we passed in our old collection. Oh, this is replace range. I want to go to remove. Remove items range. So we got our removed items. That's list T. So let's go take a closer look here. I'm gonna make this nice and big for us. So items, if it is a list T, we're gonna go here. Sorry, I list. Initializer add. So let's go here. Of iList, changed items. Initialize remove. Old items is read only list. It's added to old items. Old items is an iList. It is read only. Maybe I need to do a copy to. Let's say actual data removed. Starting at 0. Let's try that. Maybe the read-only list is messing up our code there. Nope, still failed. Let's take a closer look. Saying make this a little bit easier to read. Yeah, we'll get a better idea. So it's saying line 630. Object reference not set to the instance of an object. It's my favorite exception of all time. We got null reference exception here. That's what I was doing. Okay. So it's saying that something is null here. Is old items null? All right, let's expand this a little bit. We'll be able to figure out what's going on in a second. So I'm just gonna say no e dot old items. Minimize our music. Don't know why that popped up. So I can't actually attach the debugger to the test when I'm building the Core FX, which is one of my pet peeves with developing this stuff. I have to do it all through the command line. I'm not sure exactly why I can't do that. I haven't really looked into it too much. I just found it was fastest for me to just run it through the command line. When I tried hooking up XUnit to Visual Studio or VS Code, I was running into some problems with that. If you got some docs on what I need to do to set that up, I definitely could take a look at that, but unfortunately I'm not sure exactly how to set that up. So I feel like I'm back to programming the way I did when I first started. No debugger. Alright, well, let's see if old items is null. And it's not giving us an exception message, so my guess is old items is null. 632. Yep, so old items is not being set correctly. So let's go and take a look at our observable collection. Oh, excuse me. And we're removing 4 items there. And remove items is here, and we're saying the length if index is less than that minus that plus. Okay, just remember some of my code here. What's T? If item is iList, we cast it as an iList. If we do reset, maybe it's not getting passed to the right action. Maybe that's the problem. So let's go and take a look at the remove items range. And count needs to be greater than 0, which it is, and that needs to be false, which it is. And our removed items get passed. We're passing in the remove action. So we come down here, we still pass our action down. And saying if action is not equal to add, not equal to remove, and not equal to reset, okay. If action is reset, which is not, it's remove. Changed items equals to null, we throw an exception. If this is less than, starting is less than -1, we throw an argument exception. Else we do the initialize add or remove. So if it's add, we do initialize add. Otherwise we do initialize remove. So if old items is equal to null, pass null. Else we do a read-only list of old items right there. and old items is equal to old items. So that all makes sense to me. And that is our notify collection change event arguments. And it is saying that that is null, right? It's saying failed at line 632. Why would it say that e.oldItems is null? I'm not sure. Let me just comment some things out here and see what happens. Probably might yell at me for that. Yeah. Just rerun that, comment that out as well. Yeah, I definitely do understand what you're talking about with the Test Explorer over here. With this particular project, I found it just doesn't work as expected, and we can certainly. I'll give it another shot. I mean, try anything again, right? So we're looking at the collection object model tests. And I'm doing observable collection tests. That's not it. I should just be able to right click in here and say debug test. Maybe it'll make me a liar. Promise you, last time I tried building it through Visual Studio, it just nothing liked it, nothing worked. The debugger was working. We could probably solve this in 5 minutes. Well, let's give it a shot. Doesn't hurt to try it again. Yeah, I kept getting, this was the error. There was an unexpected error when we were running the tests. There's just something really funky going on here with how the project's configured, so I was never able to get that working. Alright, so this old items is null for some reason. Let's see what we can do to make it actually be worth have data in it. So that test failed, and this test should not be failing at all now. Oh, I figured it out. Did anyone in the chat? Anyone figure out why this is not working still in the chat? Going once? Going twice? I'll give you another second because I know there's a little bit of a delay. My dog's trying to say hi over here as well. but all right. So let me break down what the problem is here. I'm really mad at myself for missing it, and the debugger would have caught this immediately. Okay. So we are initializing our collection here, right? And then our collection, we wire up our collection changed. If we take a closer look at our observable collection here, that's not what I want to do. So down here we can actually filter out. So if I filter out all of our events, we have one type of collection, and that is collection changed. When looking over at our observable collection code now, let's say we took a look at our remove items range implementation. Down here at the bottom, we're passing in an action to on collection change. We have all sorts of different actions we could pass, add, remove, reset, replace. Sky's the limits, right? So what's happening is as we populate our collection, this event is firing and old items is null because there are no old items when we're just doing a simple add. So what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to move this up here, and then I'm gonna set this collection changed event. I'm gonna wire that up down here, and then what we're actually gonna do is we're gonna simplify this again back to a one line call. Do that. And we'll just uncomment all the stuff that we commented out. Alright, so now we wire up our collection changed after we hydrate the test data, and then we call the removed range, which is going to fire this, which is going to set our actual data removed. So now everything should work. Let's give it a shot and see what happens. Error. Line 635. Still yelling at us. What is it yelling at us for? No, we have one failing test now, but it's... Am I losing my mind here? Did I comment out the other test? I might have. Alright. So we still got an error here. And our argument said destination array was not long enough. Okay. So I'm going to go back on... This is not long enough. That makes sense. So we said earlier that I was going to do cast that to int, and then do to array. We'll go back to the code that we originally wanted to do because it's easier. Put our semicolon at the end. Delete, delete. Alright, so let's try that. And now we should have no failing tests. Fingers crossed. That's better. That's better. So it's saying our expected was 1111 when we got 1, 2, 3, 4. So our actual data removed and our expected data removed. I got these flipped anyways. So our actual data removed should be second. Let's take a look here. So our initial data has span 0. Number of items to remove is 4. I'm gonna flip these. Comma. Alright. Now it's saying that the actual data, so that our expected data did not match our actual. I'm just gonna. These are actually flipped, the actual is expected. So the expected was 1, 2, 3, 4. Our actual data removed was 1, 1, 1, 1. Why was it just an array of ones? That's 0 and 4. Let's take a look at my remove items range. So index is less than, yes, then we're going to do 0 plus 4, length of 4, starting at index, which is 0. Oh, well, that needs to be an I. All right. So we're going to need to rebuild this, which, as we saw earlier, takes a very long time. Oops. So let's go back. I'm going to run my clean. The clean is done running. We'll run the build, and we will wait about 10 minutes for that to run through. And then the test will work. So we'll do build. Let me go through my history here. Here it is. Alright. Since this is going to take 10 minutes, I'm going to take a short break and be back in a couple minutes, and then we'll get these tests squared away. I'll leave the build screen running. I just want to go fill up my water bottle. So let's go just adjust this 1 second. Nope, I did the wrong thing. I wanted to turn that off and turn this on. There we go. I'm still getting used to Twitch. I probably shouldn't be streaming and building off the same machine, but I'm gonna be back. We'll let this build run, and then we'll finish this up. Alright, I'm back and it looks like the build is still running. Let me just turn on the camera again. Oops. I think next time I'll hook up my other monitor so I don't need to keep flipping back and forth between that. Alright. And then once this is done, this test will be completed and we will go back to the pull request here and is it over here? And update it and just mark the changes that we've made. And we'll still have a few more things to do before we can clean up this pull request, but these were the really big items that we needed to do. Because before we could finish this pull request, I'm going to need to rebase my changes on the Core CLR project. And then it should be good to be merged into that point. But let's get our test cases passing, and we'll go from there. I am pretty excited about getting this change in because, as I was mentioning at the beginning, where did it get marked? We'll head over to show you where it got marked. But Microsoft is planning to put this in the next release of the next version of the .NET Standard, which is pretty exciting. So we scroll down towards the bottom here. They're asking if this will be done soon because we're trying to get in the .NET Standard, and they flagged it as a candidate for that. So hoping that I'll get this all wrapped up this weekend, and the nice folks from Microsoft will get the final reviews done and get it merged in the beginning of the week. The music causes a lot of noise in the chat. I'll have to see what I can do about cleaning that up for next time. James recommended using Pretzel Rocks, which I like to have just some chill background music. I think I'm actually going to start coding with that stuff in general in the background. Alright. And the test that was failing was this one, right? And we made the update here to grab I instead of index. Because before I kicked the build off, line 152 here was saying this.index, and that's why I was saying 1, 1, 1. So now that we've updated that to I, that should fix the failing test case here at line 640. And then we're just going to double check to see if there's any additional test cases we want to add in. And we'll commit this and push it. While we're still waiting for that to build, I was thinking maybe I could show the collection of T changes that we had to make for this. So I kind of jumped into the observable collection, but I never really showed the collection T changes. So let me open up that project. So the Core CLR project, source, I'm going to go to private core lib solution. I guess it's probably got a few more minutes to run before we can run our tests. So we've been working in these virtual methods here in the observable collection, and everything kind of boiled down to these. Where are they? So for like the remove range and the replace range, those are public APIs, but they just pipe into the remove items range and the replace items range. And we did the same thing for the insert range. That just pipes into the insert items range, and then there is an add range as well, which pipes into the insert items range and just passes in the count, so we put it at the end of the collection. So this gives us our public APIs, which are separated out from the protected ones, which is where we're doing our override implementations on the observable collection. And this handles all of our data validation and collection manipulation here. And the same thing with the remove items and the replace. The replace is actually pretty simple. We just call remove and then we call insert and we're done. And all of this code here has already been approved and merged into the core CLR. Alright. And we're still building. That. Hoping this finishes building soon. I'm sure we all just enjoy watching the build log. So I'm gonna take this second to thank my first 4 followers, because this is my first time doing a coding stream. So just wanted to thank everyone that started following me. I'm planning to start doing these once a week, where I'm gonna try and do some open source coding and just what I'd be doing anyways, but talking through my problems with anyone that wants to connect and watch me ramble through open source. So again, thanks for the follow, guys. I appreciate that. And I think we're getting close to the end of the build. We're at the R's. So that's... No, I don't think it gets built alphabetically. We gotta be getting close, though. And it's not as bad as when I was doing the core CLR changes as well, because I'd have to run... Oh, there's MS Core Lib, so it's going to be done in just a little bit. When I was doing the core CLR changes, I would have to make the changes in the core CLR project, run the build, wait for that build to finish, which was a couple minutes, and then I would have to run this build, which was, as you've seen, is long. I can go back to that XKCD comic of the code is compiling and just running around with cardboard swords with my coworkers. Alright. So since this is almost done, I am going to head back to our other solution. And we're going to have that in the history here. The object model. We'll hit OK. Alright. Let that finish loading up. And thanks for everyone bearing with these super long build times. I promise in my future streams, we're not, unless we're doing .NET Core changes, we're not going to have long build times like this. Hopefully it'll be a minute or two at the most, not 10-15 minutes of us sitting around. Alright. Or maybe I'll just get better at filling the void with me rambling on about stuff. All right. All for just a one-line change here. Just a one-line change that I messed up. And earlier in the stream, we were talking about a separate change I made in replace, and that ended up working. We ran the when we ran the last set of unit tests over here. So when an exception does bubble up, it's still going to reset our skipped raising events, but I won't call the rest of the code. So that was actually pretty nice. That actually started working after our latest build. Oh, it's just about done. The .NET Core assemblies are showing up now, or the new specs, I mean. Patiently waiting. Alright, finally. Let's see if it works. Alright, so we're on .NET MS build /t rebuild and test. And I'll keep those fingers crossed that we have 0 errors. Alright, discovering, running. Look at that. 0 errors. It just took us about 15 minutes, almost 20 minutes to get to that point, but 0 errors. Thanks for the fingers crossing there in the chat. That's really cool. I'm happy we got that working now. So, now that we got that working, I just wanted to run through a couple of tests for the, which one was it? This was insert range, right? Actually, that should be add range. Let's add, I'm just going to copy and paste this one. Let's move this one actually. I want to go find our add range test. So we'll do add range. Here it is. I just want them to kind of be together. So now that we put that over there, I want to create another one for add range. We're gonna nope, not gonna be over here. We want an insert range. Oops. Zoom that back to 100. So let's copy this one, and I'm gonna go find our insert range. Do I not have an insert items? I don't have insert items. Okay, well let's add them in. And I'm going to call this insert range. And instead of add range, we're going to make this back to insert. And do 0. So these two tests are practically, actually no, they are doing something slightly different. Never mind. The add range does call insert range when it passes in the count. So right now, this one adds the stuff to the end. This one adds stuff to the beginning. Let's add another one. That's going to be pretty much the exact same one, but I'm going to start at like 3. And insert event arcs. We're going to say, do I want to do this one? Yes, I do want to do this one. Event arcs middle. And we're also going to do one where we do it at the end. I'm just going to make sure these tests all run, but we do have a small modification we need to make because all these collections are of length 0, so I want to add some items to the collection so we can just certify that stuff's being added in the correct spot. But let's make sure that we didn't add any failing tests, and we totally did. Index must be within the bounds of the list, so the list is broken. Excuse me. So we're going to change that to 2, and what we'll do here is we'll just create a simple for loop. Say length is 4, collection add. Easy. We'll just add that there. Do the same thing here. We cut down the white space there. And there, save. And we'll run our tests again. And it shouldn't yell us for that index bounds. Perfect. So now we've added those tests in. So I wanted to test inserting at the end, which we did, in the middle, and at the beginning. So let's go and look at our remove range event args test. So this one starts at 0, so I want to copy this one, and we're just going to rename this to beginning. We'll say start. Index of 0. There, that's better. Get rid of that comment. And we're going to say index middle. So we'll do like 3. We'll say int start index will be, we'll say 3. Do that to 3, do that to start. And I think there's going to be one more test I want to add in. Let that run. Alright, perfect. So there's going to be one more test we add in here. This is remove. Nope, because I can't remove that. Nope, that looks good to me. Alright, so what I'm going to do now is we're just going to update our pull request, and we'll call this good for my first live coding stream with .NET Core development. So let's just take a look at the changes I've made here. Alright, well, this thing we can actually use the IDE for. So if I come over here to changes, I'm just going to double check to make sure that I didn't leave any comments in by mistake. So yep, I renamed that. Let's make this a little bigger. If that was just renaming it to raising events, we did updated all that. Simple for added our try finally logic, updated that. What do we do down here? Oh, yep, we updated our collection handling, so that looks good to me. Let's see what we did for our method tests. So we just added a bunch of awesome test coverage and cleaned up some errors that we got, so that looks good to me. Compare this. And this was just fixing some tests after we made changes. Perfect. So then what I'm going to do is take one more look at our observable collection so I can come up with a compelling message to write in my history. So the big thing that we did here was we updated observable collection of T to only throw the 3 required events when replace items range is invoked. Added additional exception handling to reset skip raising events bool, and added unit tests to verify event and event parameters are being passed correctly. Updated unchanged event methods to check for iList and cast as necessary. Added additional exception handling. Okay, so that all makes sense to me. I'm going to commit. And it's going to ask me to put in my GPG password whenever that pops up. There we go. Done. So now I'm going to come over here and we'll do get push fork observable collection add range, and that will update my pull request. Perfect. And we head back over to the actual pull request that is open. All right. And we have, perfect. We have updated this. So I'll just put some notes in here saying, which one was this? Perfect. I updated the place items range to only fire the 3 events and pass the correct event arguments. And we'll update that one down there. So I'll comment that. I'm going to mark this as resolved. I updated the, what was the method called? I already forgot of that. It was an on collection change, I think it was called. Yeah, on collection change. I updated the on collection changed method to handle iList correctly. No, there is anything else for this. I'm going to Actually, since it was pretty much the exact same thing down here, I'm gonna update that as well. So we'll resolve that. And copy that. Comment. Resolve. We'll give them a thumbs up. I like giving people thumbs up. Alright. And I did mention there was one last thing I wanted to do. There's always one more thing, right? No, we're not going to do that with this. Alright. Cool. So the next step for me is to wait and see if there's any more feedback with changes. I'll just put a note in here. We'll say that has been coming so far. Let me know if that. Nope. I'm not going to put that in yet. I still need to rebase my branch. I'm not going to do that on the live stream because I've been doing this for a little over 2 hours now. I think this is a pretty good stopping point for my first live stream. Thanks again for everyone that has tuned in and selected to follow me. I am planning to start doing these regularly on Mondays, but I'm not really 100% sure. This was kind of just my test run to get started. So I think we're going to be doing the Mondays afternoon Eastern time. I'll be posting on Twitter about it. So yeah, please follow me on Twitch, and if you want, you can go and follow me on Twitter as well. I'm going to go put a link to my Twitter handle in the chat so you guys have it. And I'll be posting that on Twitter once I know I'm going to regularly do it. Yeah, thanks for tuning in, everyone. I really appreciate it. Hope everyone got a little bit of value out of this, and I'll see you guys next time. Thanks again.